Well, guys, we're halfway through, as you know, and hard to believe there's 4 to 5 weeks left of the season. And where are we at? We're in, I guess, decent shape. At 6-3, we're in decent shape. We got a chance to be in this race still, but it's got some big games coming up. And this week, I don't think there's any bigger. This is a team, I think basketball is about matchups, and this team is a tough matchup for us. First of all, they got 2 players that everybody's wondering whether they'll be back or not. I don't know. And one of them had led them in rebounding, assist, scoring, and yet they've been 5-3 since he's been gone. And that's Rice. And, they've gotten a lot of play out of Nunn and Hill. Those guys are athletic, 6'4", 6'6" guys that can do a lot of things. And so I think matchup-wise, it's going to be challenging for us. As far as we go, Dawson is still playing. 6 out of his 9 games that have double-doubles is quite a feat, and still hovering around that 12 rebound a game. And plus, he's been one of our better defenders. So we're getting a lot out of him. And our big battle cry now is this week we actually almost took 2 days off to try to get Trice, I think back where he's feeling good and he's not as drained, and try to get Elvin Ellis and a little more time so that he can get better. We've tried to work on ourselves one day. We'll spend the next 2 days working a lot on Illinois. I think they've had 4 or 5 different players that have scored at least 18 points. And when you have injuries like suspensions like they've had and injuries, maybe that's not as abnormal, but that proves that they've got a lot of guys that can score. They're leading the league in free throw shooting, which is a big thing. They're shooting almost 82 or 83%. And they take care of the ball pretty well because they play 4 guards a lot. And I think that's a big plus for them. So for us, shoot the ball a little better, shoot it from the line a little better, continue to get better defensively, keep our rebounding where it's at, and get our fast break going more and more and more. So I think this week will be a high-octane game, but a very good game. And those that don't know Illinois, not only did they beat us here last year, but they're a way better team than they were a year ago. And hard to say what it'll do, getting guys back, whether they're coming back. Everything's a big secret, so who knows who's going to be where. But all I know is they're 5-3 in this league without Rice, and he is a good player. So, questions?
Tom, Nunn and Hill in some ways have been better since Rice is gone. Is there something within that dynamic that works better for them? And also, how do you do this with Walton last weekend, not knowing if he was going to play in terms of preparation when you don't know if they're going to have their starting backcourt?
Well, it's very difficult, this one, though. The Walton one wasn't as hard. He averaged 9 points. This kid averaged 17-8 a game, 9 rebounds a game in the Big Ten. Has been a key guy for 2 years now with him. So it's a little hard. And Cosby is a guy that was playing 28 minutes a game, and I don't know what the issue is there. It seems like between college basketball and the Cleveland Browns, we got enough things going on. It's unbelievable. But I think it makes our preparation a little more difficult. I mean, they probably know if he's playing. They probably are practicing. He's practiced with them. But at the same time, they can only put 5 guys on the floor. So we look at a little tape from when he was playing. We look at a little tape from when he wasn't playing. And just try to tell our players it doesn't matter who's playing. We gotta play. We gotta worry about us too.
Tom, with Bryn getting some more shots the past few games, what does that do for your offense in terms of maybe freeing up some other guys, even if the shots don't fall, just kind of taking some attention and putting it more on Forbes?
Well, we're getting enough shots. We're getting 58, 59 shots a game. That's a lot more than the 52, 53 that maybe we've gotten over the years, or what more the average of the league is. So we are getting enough shots up, partially because we're running better, partially because we're getting more offensive rebounds. And Bryn getting more shots, helps us, but Bryn's got to get more shots. I mean, I think everybody thinks you can just manufacture ways to get them. I think the hardest thing that I deal with is trying to understand what a player needs, but also hold a player accountable. Our fast break, our wings are not running. So if our point guard pushes it, and we could get more shots if our wings would run. Defensively, if we were a little better, we'd get, teams would miss more shots and you get more breaks. So, this thought of just getting a guy more shots is going to solve all the problems is insane. Guys got to be, when you're playing at this level and when you're playing against a lot of good teams right now, maybe not as many great teams, but a lot of good teams. I mean, every night we go out, we're playing against somebody that can beat us. And which means they got good players. And usually the best players are the wing players. And so, we're still saying that, Bryn, we got to get you more offense, but you got to run your lane. You got to make sure you're getting out. You got to still get some rebounds. You got to guard. You got to do all these things. And that's tough for him, but we don't have the luxury of being able to have just an offensive player in there. And so there's a lot that goes into it.
Tom, you talk about getting healthier. Is Javon making progress with his ankle, and will he get back in the lineup if he does?
You know what? Javon isn't making a lot of progress, if I was to be honest with you. Making some, but he's not making a lot of progress. It's just been it's been a very frustrating thing for him and a very frustrating thing for me because I know what I want to do. I know what I think is going to help us. I know what, I've told you Trice is, in my mind, he's not shooting as well, and there's some things defensively got to get a little better. But all that started because of all those weeks with no subs on the perimeter. I mean, we had one sub and those three positions. And that was Tom for 7 weeks. And really it's been 2 subs, but Elvin just hasn't played as much, so 1.5 subs for the whole season. I mean, the one game I thought JB played pretty well at Nebraska. He had 9 points, and he looked like he was moving better. But just hasn't, and there's nothing they can see medically. It's as far as anything with the break or anything, but it is what he is. You guys can see he's not running. Looks like he's running on eggshells to me. So that's been a tough thing that we're dealing with, and we're doing everything we can do. But so then we go to phase 2, which is to try to rest a guy like Trav, who's not physically as gifted as some, and we're just going to have to get him more rest, and we're trying to do that even in practices, and that's what we're working on now.
Back on Forbes, Tom, Denzel actually kind of laughed the other day when he talked about Forbes getting on the floor for that play. So, he doesn't do that stuff normally, but he saw that as a sign of progress. And I guess my question is, how difficult is it to, when you bring in a guy who's been in another program for 2 years, to get him into that sort of mindset of the way you want people to play?
Well, I think I'd be careful about it, even the way I want him to play, the way you need to play to be a player at this level. As I tell guys, no matter where you come from, because, he came from a great program and they do a lot of good things, but I don't think anybody would disagree that it gets ratcheted up. But it's also, are you playing to win games, or are you playing to get into the tournament and win championships, So whatever you did, because he was the best player, wasn't good enough, because they didn't get to those things. And that's the sell job I use, Zell said it better than him. He's known him longer than I have, It is one of Bryn's negatives. But we've all got him. I sure as hell do. So we all got him. But one thing I love about the kid is he's trying to do better. But even him, if anybody told me we'd play him 30, 31 minutes a game this year, I would have said, you're crazy. just because I didn't think he physically could do that. And, we've been put in a position because of our injuries, like everybody else that's had them, that he's played 30, 31 minutes a game. And trying to do that, adjust defensively. I mean, he's gone some games without a rebound. That's hard to play 30 minutes. Usually they just fall in your hand. But what I love about him is he wants to please and he's trying to get better. It's just something that, this summer is going to have to be a real point of, I got to get stronger. I got to do this. I mean, I don't think you can ever tell a guy those things until you go through it. And so the positive is I don't think we'd be as good without Bryn Forbes. The negative of him being eligible immediately is a redshirt year would have been really good for Bryn Forbes. So he's doing, every day, that kid, if you tell him something, he listens, he wants to please. He's been great. We do got to get a little more out of him offensively. That's our job. He's got to get a little more out of himself defensively and maybe running. I mean, that running thing is a big thing. And he's a good athlete, and he's, I think, pretty well conditioned. But we think we can get Trice some more open shots if we get our break running, our wings running deeper. And that's what we're working hard on this week.
Tom, as good as BJ's been, it seems like when Denzel's on, you're a lot better team. There's the obvious, like he was Sunday. How much personal time have you spent with him to get him where you think he needs to be?
I spent a lot of time with those couple of guys. All three of them. Because you're right, we start talking about Bryn Forbes, getting more out of him. We start talking about Costello and getting more out of him. I don't think there's any secret. If my two best shooters, or two of my three best shooters, are shooting in the low 30s, we're not going to be as good. And in Zell's case, he has improved so much defensively, and then he gets the assignment of having the best player a lot of times, and then he's got to play a lot of minutes, and then I'm expecting him to shoot. So we're definitely better when his game is on. I'd say that's a good barometer for us, but we're asking a lot of him too, and JB would help that tremendously if we could get more minutes out of him. But in the meantime, I think Zell's shot will come back because he played better in the last game because he's worked so hard on it. I don't ever go to bed thinking Zell's not working on his game. I think he'll be fine. I really do.
There are minutes on this team for guys that want to earn them. A couple weeks ago, you told us you'd almost given up on Alvin. His minutes still aren't there. Tom, why is he not progressing? What is it that you put your finger on?
Well, boy, it's supposed to be an easy press conference. We just won 2 games. Alvin's a great kid, and, I think I talked to Day last night. I talked to Gary and AP, and, we were talking about when does the light bulb go on with different people. I think it's been well documented that for a year and a half, Day was not the hardest practice playing worker, Alvin, I said it at the beginning of the year. I've said it to his face. He did not put in the time that you needed to put in last year. And then when he started to this year, then he gets the bad injury, and he misses 5, 6, 7 weeks at the beginning of the year for a guy who's not there yet. If a guy is there already and he misses that time, he comes back, that's one thing. I will say this, in the last couple weeks, you're right, 2 weeks ago, I felt like, where is he going? I thought Tuesday's practice, he might have been the MVP of practice. But as I told him, confidence works both ways. You got to give it. A player always wants a coach to have confidence in him, but there's nothing more than a coach wants than to have confidence in the player. But it's earned both ways, and so if he could keep having practices like that, I'd feel more comfortable in those games. And I think I think BJ is his best friend. I think BJ's been on him as hard as anybody. So, good kid, good person, starting to show a little more passion for the game. I think what's hard for a reporter, for a fan to see, is everybody doesn't love the game the same. We just think that they're at Michigan State in football and basketball. They're at Alabama in football. They're at Duke in basketball. You know, as we've learned in the last couple of weeks, not everybody puts in enough time. I mean, read between the lines at Duke's dismissal. I mean, it wasn't what you'd normally read between the lines. It was just flat out, does he want to do the things? You know, I don't know what happened at Ohio State, but are guys willing to work hard enough to do the things that are expected of that program? I mean, you all know it. We don't play here for sixth place. We're supposed to do the things to try to compete to win a championship, try to compete to go to a Final Four. That's the way it is. That's what you signed up for. If you don't want to do those things, and I thought for a year he didn't. And I told him that. I told his family that. I got no problem. Now, this year I think he was getting a little better, and then the injury happened, and I think some guys handle injuries different than others, too. Some guys it's very depressing. Some guys it's the first injury they've ever had. Other guys have been used to it. You know, it's of all people, who did I talk to yesterday but Russell Bird? You know, and Russ, a big game last night, and they lost by a couple, but he just, you know, talked about how he handled his injuries and what he went through, and goods, the bads, the goods, because I asked him questions. I think I'm always trying to learn too, but I will say this. I mean, things sound a little unknown and crazy because they are. They are. And that's not the norm here. But they are not in a bad way. It's just one of those years where, you know, we need to get a few more guys together to get to the level we want to get. I feel comfortable in it because I think two of my best players have earned the right and have done the things to be at that level I'm talking about, and that's Trav and Zell. And if they keep getting up, then these other guys won't have as much pressure on them to do their job, and I think it'll pay off.
You mentioned that Saturday will be a high-tempo game. How much do you embrace that pace at this point of the season, considering March is right around the corner and against a team like Illinois?
Well, what Illinois creates for us is a bunch of guards that are very athletic, very strong, and they're one of the better three-point shooting teams in the league. And so we're going to have to defend. It's a smaller team, you know, and so we've played some smaller teams, some bigger teams. I mean, as you get close to the end of the year, you got to be able to play against a lot of different people. And I think this team right now, along with Purdue, are playing awfully well. And their confidence is up. They're making shots. And when that happens, I think it's going to be a big-time test for us. I really do. You look at records sometimes, and I don't know, are they 6-3 now? Are they 5-6? 5-5. Okay. And they 5-3 without their guys, but it's so hard right now to look at what records are even for ourselves, because none of us are used to this. Who do you play, and where have you played them? I looked at it today. Some guys got a bunch of home games left. Some guys have very few home games left, and some are right in the middle, and we're, I guess, more in the middle, bordering on some tougher games, though, coming up than I think some had in the early parts. So, again, last night, if you watch, Penn State had a chance to beat Maryland at Maryland. You know, I don't know how he thinks they're playing right now, but they're not playing as good as they were at the beginning of the year. And you watch Indiana, I don't know how bad their injuries are, but there's a lot of things that are creating. You watch Duke against my old buddy BG last night, you know, and it's sometimes I think I'm expecting too much. You asked me a good question last week, but I'm not going to expect too little either, because we are good enough to be right in the thick of things. And yet, like every team in the country, we need our top 2 or 3 players to play at that level. And the teams that are winning right now, Kaminsky is playing at that level. Decker has been pretty much at that level. You look at Duke, you got Okafor and really the other guard besides Jones, Cook, is playing at that level. You look at who's leading. Kansas is getting more solid play. Then you look at a Texas, who I put them down as a Final Four team. They're 3-6, 3-7. Had some injuries that lasted a little while. Had trouble coming back from them, and that's the way it is. So, believe it or not, I like where we are for what our circumstances have been. I don't like how we've played or shot the ball at times lately, but I do like where we are. I do like the fact that there's enough positives to build on, and the things that we got to get better at are players that I think are capable of getting better at it. If I have to ask Schilling to score more, or this guy to do this more, or Elvin to, be a 15-point scorer, then I'd be shooting pie in the sky type stuff. But what I think can happen, and you bring up a good point, Fred, with Zell, when he plays well, his whole game is better, and his defense has improved a ton. His three-point shooting is a ton better than last year, even though in the last couple of weeks he hasn't shot it quite as well.
I'm back to Zell a little bit. I think after the game Sunday, most of us noticed he was a little bit different after the game. He was way more loose. He seemed way more at ease after that game. Did you notice that from him too? And can that be kind of, the
Well, that's
breakthrough
interesting
for him
you
this
say
year?
that, because one of the things that I've talked to him about, and we've talked to him, I talked to his dad about, is, Zell, of all the guys in this team, he cares about the program maybe more than anybody. I would think that's from the fact that his parents went here, his dad played here, and he's just been brought up on it. And I think sometimes Zell puts too much pressure on himself. I think he's the one guy that puts way too much on himself for his personal goals, but also for our team goals and the program and Lansing, and he puts a lot on his shoulders. So I have noticed in the last week and a half, because we spent a lot of time talking to him about it, I didn't notice that after the game, but I'm almost happy you said that, because that's a positive sign then if you guys pick that up, because I don't ever go to bed at night wondering if he cares. I don't ever go to bed at night wondering if this isn't the most important thing in the world to him. And that's a refreshing part of Denzel that I think will get him through this mini shooting slump. And I think he came out of it some the other day, and I think his play, was definitely a big part of us winning.
Tom, I hate to nitpick, but
Go ahead.
why the hell are we here if we can't nitpick?
Right.
Somebody asked me the other day why college players can't shoot free throws. I don't have an answer. Now, I've offered to shoot them for you, and you've shockingly declined. But seriously, if you don't get better at it, it's going to cost you games, isn't it?
Yeah, last year, Kentucky, shot poorly from the line. Louisville shot poorly from the line. I think you're right. But you're going to be amazed how many teams are shooting poorly from the line. And Arizona is shooting poorly from the line. Hey, Duke's got 2 guys shooting 90 and 3 guys shooting in the 50s. That's Duke, and that was on TV last night. And why? I think the same old reason we say why on everything, Fundamentally, kids aren't working on them. I just talked to Travis Trice before I came down here, and that's why I was a little late, and I said, here's a kid who shot 82, 81 for his whole career, and is shooting 69. I said, you can control that. It just takes the Tom Izzo 100 a day times 5, 500 free throws a day, spend an extra half hour in year. You can control that. And that's what I'm trying to tell our guys. But they don't look at that as big things. You really don't. And they are big things. And especially guys that have done it well their whole life. So why nationwide they aren't? I just think it's because they're not brought up on it being an important part of the game. Like Dawson has spent a ton of time this year. We spend time in practice. Practice there's the one place I'll agree with Allen Iverson. It's not about practice with something like this. You got to get reps in on your own. You got to come in extra. You got to spend extra time. I just don't know if anybody spends enough time on things like that. Like Zell spends a ton of time on his shooting. But look, he's shooting 32% from the three. But it's not because he's not spent time on it. He's shooting 86 or 87% from the free throw line, and yet he missed the critical front end of a one-on-one. You know, that happens too. But I would say in general, I don't think guys spend enough time working on their free throws in general. I know I didn't when I was in college. That's what I do now.